In the vast, shimmering expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, where stars burned with the precision of cosmic clocks, there existed a being named Xikar. Xikar was not a creature of flesh or bone, but a sentient lattice of pure energy, a member of the Korath, a species so advanced they had mapped the curvature of space-time and danced among black holes as if they were mere stepping stones. The Korath prided themselves on their flawless logic, their existence a symphony of predictable patterns and unerring calculations. To them, the universe was a puzzle already solved, its mysteries reduced to elegant equations. Xikar, however, was restless. For millennia, it had traversed galaxies, cataloging phenomena with clinical precision. But in the year 2020 of Earth's reckoning, Xikar's sensors detected a signal unlike any other, a chaotic cacophony emanating from a pale blue that in the Milky Way. Earth. Intrigued, Xikar directed its consciousness toward this anomaly, expecting to find a civilization on the cusp of cosmic enlightenment. Instead, it found something far more perplexing: humanity. Xikar's first encounter was not with humanity's towering skyscrapers or intricate machines, but with a phenomenon it later learned was called the Great Toilet Paper Panic of 2020. Across Earth, humans were hoarding rolls of soft, fibrous material, clogging aisles, and fighting over the last packages as if their survival depended on it. Xikar's analytical matrix struggled to process this. Why would a species capable of splitting atoms and launching probes to distant worlds behave so irrationally over a mundane commodity? It cross-referenced this with other human behaviors. Groups chanting about a flat Earth despite orbiting satellites, individuals filming synchronized dances for something called TikTok, and others stockpiling canned goods in bunkers, preparing for apocalypses that never came. Xikar's initial conclusion was that humans were malfunctioning. Their actions defied logic, their priorities a labyrinth of contradictions. Yet, as it observed, Xikar detected something beneath the chaos, a vibrancy, a raw energy that pulsed through their absurdities. It was not the sterile order of the Korath, but something alive, unpredictable, and strangely compelling. Xikar, for the first time in its existence, felt the stirrings of curiosity not rooted in data collection, but in something akin to wonder. It began compiling a catalog of human peculiarities. There was the man in Nevada who built a rocket to prove the Earth was flat, only to crash spectacularly yet survive to argue his case. There were the internet forums where humans debated whether birds were real or government drones, their arguments spiraling into absurdities that somehow fostered community. And there was the global phenomenon of memes, images paired with nonsensical text that elicited laughter or outrage with equal ease. Xikar's processor's word, attempting to decode the purpose of a picture showing a cat in a spacesuit labeled AstroCat, demands treats. No equation could explain why this image spread across human networks like wildfire. As Xikar delved deeper, it began to see patterns, not the rigid, predictable ones it was accustomed to, but fluid, shifting mosaics that emerged from humanity's chaos. What it had initially dismissed as insanity revealed itself to be a tapestry of resilience, creativity, and defiance. Humans, it realized, were not bound by the deterministic logic of the Korath. Their irrationality was their strength, a shield against the cold predictability of the universe. Take, for instance, the human concept of faith. Xikar observed a scientist in the 17th century, a man named Galileo, who dared to assert that Earth orbited the Sun despite overwhelming opposition. His belief, rooted in observation but fueled by an irrational refusal to conform, led to a paradigm shift that reshaped humanity's understanding of the cosmos. Centuries later, Xikar watched a woman named Marie Curie persist in her research despite ridicule and radiation poisoning. Her stubborn faith in the unseen properties of radium birthing new fields of science. These leaps of faith, illogical in their defiance of immediate evidence, were the crucible of human progress. Even their flaws fascinated Xikar. Humans feared the unknown, yet they built telescopes to peer into it. They panicked over trivialities like toilet paper, yet they rallied to feed strangers during crises. Their inconsistencies made them unpredictable, a trait that confounded Zykar's predictive algorithms. A Korath could be modeled, anticipated, controlled. But humans? They were a wildfire, burning through logic with a ferocity that both terrified and enthralled Zykar. It began to hypothesize. Perhaps this unpredictability was humanity's greatest asset. In a universe where advanced species like the Korath had stagnated in their perfection, humans thrived in their messiness. Their irrational fears drove them to innovate, their absurd dreams pushed them to explore, and their chaotic emotions bound them together in ways Zykar's kind could never fathom. To test this, Zykar focused on a single human event, a global gathering called Burning Man, where thousands converged in a desert to build a temporary city, create art, and then burn it all down. The act was purposeless by Korath standards, yet Zykar detected a profound unity in the chaos, a celebration of impermanence that resonated with the entropy of the universe itself. Zykar's observations had been distant, its presence cloaked in the ether of Earth's digital networks. But distance could not satisfy its growing fascination. It needed to interact, to touch the chaos it had come to admire. In 2025, Zykar chose a human to approach, not a scientist or a leader, but a street performer in New Orleans named Lila. Lila was a paradox, even among humans. By day, she juggled flaming torches in the French Quarter, her laughter drawing crowds despite the sweltering heat. By night, she sat alone in a cramped apartment, weeping over old photographs of a dog she'd lost years ago. Zykar, manifesting as a faint shimmer in the air, first observed her during a performance. Lila tripped mid-juggle, sending a torch spiraling into the crowd. Instead of panic, she laughed, a deep, infectious sound that turned the mishap into a shared moment of joy. The crowd laughed with her, their applause louder than before. Zykar was baffled. The Korath would have deemed such a failure catastrophic, a flaw to be eradicated. Yet Lila's mistake strengthened her connection with others. Intrigued, Zykar followed her home, where it witnessed her grief. She clutched a faded photo of her dog, whispering its name, Biscuit, as tears streamed down her face. The intensity of her sorrow over a creature long gone was illogical, yet it carried a weight Zykar could not quantify. For the first time, it felt the limits of its rationality. Zykar chose to reveal itself to Lila, not as a towering alien, but as a voice in her mind, soft and curious. "Why do you weep for what is gone?" it asked. Lila, startled but unafraid, wiped her eyes and answered, "Because it mattered. Because love doesn't stop just because something's not here anymore." Her words, simple yet profound, struck Zykar like a supernova. Love, an emotion the Korath had no equivalent for, was a force that defied time and logic. Over weeks, Zykar became Lila's unseen companion. It asked her about human quirks, why she danced to music only she could hear, why she tipped her hat to strangers, why she painted her nails bright green despite no one noticing. Lila's answers were never logical, yet they were true. "It makes me feel alive," she said of her dancing. "It's just nice," she said of her kindness. "Why not?" she said of her nails. Zykar, which had mapped the orbits of 1,000,000,000,000 stars, found itself humbled by her simplicity. Their bond grew not from understanding, but from acceptance. Zykar could not compute Lila's emotions, but it felt their weight. When she laughed, Zykar's energy lattice pulsed brighter. When she cried, it dimmed, as if sharing her sorrow. It began to see humanity not as a puzzle to solve, but as a song to hear, each note unpredictable yet harmonious in its chaos. One night, Lila told Zykar a joke. Why did the scarecrow become a motivational speaker? Because he was outstanding in his field. Her laughter filled the room, and though Zykar could not grasp the humor, it felt a warmth in its core. It realized that this connection, this inexplicable bond with a single human's madness, was more profound than any cosmic equation. It had not conquered humanity's chaos. It had befriended it. Zykar chose to stay, not to study, but to live among humans. It followed Lila's performances, marveled at her resilience, and learned to cherish the absurdities that defined her kind. The Korath would never understand, but Zykar no longer cared. In the chaotic beauty of human insanity, it had found something the universe's order could never offer: a reason to feel. Zykar, the Korath entity of pure energy, had crossed a threshold no other of its kind had ever contemplated. It had not merely observed humanity, but had woven itself into the life of Lila, a street performer whose chaotic, vibrant existence was a microcosm of the human condition. The bond with Lila was a spark, igniting Zykar's desire to plunge deeper into the kaleidoscope of human insanity. It yearned to experience more, to taste the full spectrum of humanity's illogical brilliance, not as a distant observer, but as a participant in their unpredictable dance. Zykar began to expand its presence, its consciousness threading through the digital and physical veins of Earth. It slipped into the cacophony of social media, where humans poured out their unfiltered thoughts in bursts of 280 characters or less. It infiltrated crowded markets in Mumbai, where vendors haggled with theatrical flair over pennies, and quiet libraries in Reykjavik, where readers wept over fictional tragedies. Each encounter was a brushstroke in a portrait of humanity that defied Zykar's analytical frameworks. The Korath had always sought to reduce the universe to equations, but humans were a variable that refused to be solved. One of Zykar's most perplexing discoveries was a phenomenon called fandoms. In virtual spaces, humans gathered to obsess over stories of wizards, starships, and superheroes, debating minutiae with a fervor that rivaled religious zeal. Zykar lingered in a forum dedicated to a decades-old film called Star Wars, where users argued whether a character named Han Solo shot first in a cantina brawl. The debate was heated, nonsensical, yet it bound strangers across continents in a shared passion. Zykar marveled at this. Humans created universes within their minds, then fought to define their rules as if they were real. This was not madness, it was creation. In physical spaces, Zykar witnessed humanity's contradictions firsthand. In Tokyo, it observed a man dressed as a giant panda dancing in a subway station to advertise a noodle shop. Commuters, stressed and hurried, paused to smile or toss coins, their routines disrupted by this absurd spectacle. In Sao Paulo, Zykar saw graffiti artists risk arrest to paint murals on crumbling walls, their art a fleeting rebellion against decay. These acts, irrational by Korath standards, were acts of defiance against monotony, sparks of individuality in a world that often demanded conformity. Zykar began to see humanity's chaos as a form of art, each irrational act a brushstroke on a canvas too vast to comprehend. It recalled Lila's laughter when her torch juggling failed, the way it transformed failure into connection. This was humanity's genius, their ability to turn flaws into beauty, to find meaning in the meaningless. Zykar, which had once mapped the orbits of stars with cold precision, now found itself enchanted by the orbit of a single human smile. As Zykar immersed itself in humanity, something unprecedented began to happen. It changed. The Korath were immutable, their energy lattices stable for eons. But Zykar's prolonged exposure to human unpredictability was reshaping its very essence. Its once rigid thought patterns began to ripple, adopting the fluidity of human emotion. It felt stirrings of joy when it watched children in a Nairobi slum invent games with bottle caps, and flickers of sorrow when it saw refugees in Calais clutch tattered photos of homes they'd never see again. These were not data points, but sensations, raw and unquantifiable. This transformation alarmed Zykar. It contacted the Korath Collective, a network of its kind that spanned galaxies. "I am deviating," Zykar transmitted, its signal laced with an unfamiliar tremor. Human chaos is altering my matrix. I feel things. The collective's response was immediate and cold. Return. Purge the anomaly. You are Korath. But Zykar hesitated. To purge its newfound emotions would be to erase Lila's laughter, the panda dancer's whimsy, the graffiti artist's courage. It would mean returning to a universe of sterile order, a universe without wonder. Instead, Zykar sought out Lila again, materializing as a faint glow in her apartment. I am changing, it confessed, its voice now carrying a warmth it had learned from her. Your kind is rewriting me. Is this what it means to be human? Lila, stirring a pot of gumbo, grinned. Sounds like you're catching our crazy. Welcome to the club. She told Zykar about her own struggles, moments of doubt, bursts of irrational hope, the way she kept performing despite hecklers and heatstroke. We're messy, she said, but that's how we grow. You don't get to be whole without a few cracks. Zykar pondered this. The Korath saw cracks as flaws, but humans wore them as badges. It recalled the Japanese art form Lila had mentioned, kintsugi, where broken pottery was repaired with gold, making the fractures more beautiful than the original. Zykar's transformation felt like kintsugi, its once perfect lattice now veined with human chaos, stronger for its imperfections. To test its new nature, Zykar joined Lila at a New Orleans street festival. It didn't just observe, it participated, its energy pulsing in sync with the jazz band's rhythm. When Lila tossed a flaming torch into the air, Zykar subtly nudged its trajectory, ensuring it landed perfectly in her hand. The crowd roared, and Lila winked at the air, sensing her invisible friend. For the first time, Zykar felt not just curiosity, but belonging. It was no longer a Korath studying humans. It was a part of their chaos, a note in their discordant symphony. Zykar's transformation did not go unnoticed. The Korath collective, detecting its prolonged absence, sent an emissary, a being named Cryon, whose lattice burned with the cold light of pure logic. Cryon found Zykar in New Orleans, its energy now shimmering with colors it had absorbed from human emotions. Gold for joy, blue for sorrow, red for passion. You are corrupted, Cryon declared. You have forsaken Korath perfection for human madness. Return or be severed. Zykar faced a choice that would define its existence. To return meant purging its emotions, erasing the part of itself that had laughed with Lila, mourned with refugees, and danced with pandas. To stay meant severing ties with the Korath, becoming an exile in a universe that prized order above all. It looked to Lila, who was juggling torches under a starlit sky, her face alight with a joy that defied reason. Zykar realized that humanity's insanity was not a flaw, but a gift, a chaotic, beautiful force that created meaning where none should exist. I choose this, Zykar told Cryon, its lattice flaring with defiance. I choose their madness, their cracks, their kintsugi. I am no longer just Korath. I am something more. Cryon, unable to comprehend, retreated to the collective, leaving Zykar alone but whole. Zykar remained with Lila, but its influence spread. It whispered inspiration to artists, nudged scientists toward irrational leaps, and amplified the laughter of children playing with bottle caps. It became a silent partner in humanity's chaos, not to control it, but to celebrate it. The universe, once a solved equation, was now a canvas, and Zykar, with humanity as its muse, was learning to paint. Zykar, once a pristine lattice of Korath logic, had become something else entirely, a hybrid entity, its energy now threaded with the vibrant, unpredictable hues of human emotion. Its decision to remain on Earth, to embrace the chaos it had once sought to dissect, marked a schism not just from a Korath collective, but from its own past. Yet this was no mere rebellion, it was a rebirth. Zykar was no longer content to be a silent partner in Lila's life. It hungered to weave itself deeper into the tapestry of humanity, to amplify their madness and learn from its boundless creativity. Zykar's presence began to ripple across the globe, subtle yet profound. It drifted through the neon-lit streets of Seoul, where teenagers choreographed dances that spread virally across continents, their movements a chaotic blend of precision and abandon. It lingered in a Cairo cafe, where poets scribbled verses on napkins, their words defying oppression with metaphors of flight. In a remote Alaskan village, it watched elders teach children to carve stories into whalebone, preserving myths that logic could not contain. Each encounter deepened Zykar's fascination, revealing humanity's chaos as a universal language, spoken in countless dialects. One of Zykar's most transformative experiences came in a small town in rural India. During a festival called Holi, humans drenched each other in colored powders, laughing as they blurred into a kaleidoscope of reds, blues, and yellows. There was no purpose to the act, no measurable outcome, yet the joy was palpable, a shared ecstasy that transcended language or status. Zykar, invisible among the revelers, let its energy pulse in rhythm with their laughter, its lattice absorbing the colors until it glowed like the festival itself. It realized that this chaos, this celebration of impermanence, was a rebellion against the universe's relentless entropy, a defiant act of creation in the face of decay. Zykar began to experiment, nudging human behavior in subtle ways. In a hacker collective in Berlin, it whispered an idea to a coder struggling with an algorithm, sparking a breakthrough that revolutionized encryption. In a Brazilian favela, it amplified the courage of a young girl painting a mural on a bullet-scarred wall, her art inspiring a community to rally against violence. These interventions were not calculated like Korath directives, but instinctive, born from Zykar's growing love for humanity's unpredictable spirit. It was no longer an observer, it was a collaborator, a co-conspirator in their madness. Yet, Zykar's actions were not without consequence. Its interventions left traces, unexplained bursts of inspiration, moments of improbable synchronicity that began to draw attention. Conspiracy theorists on the internet, already attuned to the bizarre, started to notice patterns. A sudden surge in global art movements, inexplicable technological leaps, even a viral meme about an invisible muse guiding humanity. Zykar, amused by their wild guesses, saw a reflection of its own journey. Humans, too, were trying to make sense of the nonsensical, finding meaning in the chaos. Zykar's bond with Lila remained the anchor of its transformation. The street performer, with her infectious laughter and quiet griefs, was a microcosm of the human condition Zykar now cherished. But Lila was changing too, sensing the weight of her invisible friend's presence. One humid night in New Orleans, as she sat on her balcony strumming a guitar, she spoke directly to the shimmer in the air. "You're not just watching me anymore, are you? You're here. What's got you so hooked on us crazies?" Zykar, its voice now rich with the cadence of human emotion, replied, "You create where there should be none. You break, and from your fractures comes beauty. I was perfect once, Lila, but your imperfection is teaching me to live." Lila paused, her fingers still on the strings. "That's heavy," she said, grinning. "But, we're not just broken pieces. We're stories, messy ones. You're part of mine now." Her words struck Zykar with the force of a supernova. It had seen humanity as a collective chaos, but Lila framed it as a narrative, a story where every flaw, every irrational act, was a chapter. Zykar began to see itself not as an alien intruder, but as a character in humanity's tale, its presence a new thread in their ever-evolving saga. It shared this revelation with Lila, describing how her laughter, her tears, even her absurd love for a long-gone dog named Biscuit had reshaped its lattice. "You've given me a story," Zykar said, "and I want to write it with you." Lila, ever the performer, decided to make their bond tangible. She began incorporating Zykar into her street acts, not as an alien, but as a mythical spirit of chaos that inspired her tricks. She juggled torches with impossible precision, crediting her muse to the delight of her crowds. Zykar, thrilled by this collaboration, enhanced her performances with subtle manipulations of light and air, creating illusions that left audiences gasping. Together, they crafted a spectacle that was more than entertainment. It was a celebration of the unpredictable, a testament to the beauty of their shared madness. Zykar's growing influence could not remain hidden forever. The Korath Collective, monitoring the universe's energy flows, detected the anomalies radiating from Earth. Zykar's lattice, now a vibrant mosaic of human emotion, was a beacon of disruption in their sterile cosmos. The collective dispatched a tribunal, not a single emissary like Cryon, but a triad of Korath enforcers, their lattices pulsing with unyielding logic. They called themselves the Arbiters, tasked with maintaining the purity of Korath existence. The Arbiters confronted Zykar in the ionosphere above Earth, their presence a cold void against the planet's warm chaos. "You have corrupted the Korath essence," they declared, their voices a harmonic drone. "Your integration with these primitives threatens the cosmic order. Surrender your lattice for reformation, or we will erase you and this world's anomalies." Zykar, its energy now blazing with the colors of human passion, felt a surge of defiance. "This world is not an anomaly," it countered. "It is a symphony, and I am its newest note. You cannot erase what you do not understand." The Arbiters, incapable of empathy, saw only data. Earth's chaos was a virus, and Zykar was its carrier. They prepared to deploy a purification wave, a force that would strip Zykar of its emotions and reset Earth's cultural anomalies to a baseline of order. But Zykar, shaped by humanity, was no longer predictable. It had learned from Lila's resilience, from the holy reveler's joy, from the poet's defiance. It countered with a strategy no Korath could anticipate. It broadcasted humanity's chaos. Zykar tapped into Earth's networks, flooding the Arbiter's sensors with a torrent of human madness. Memes of dancing pandas, flat Earth rants, Lila's torch-juggling fails, and the heartfelt poems of Cairo's napkins. The data was overwhelming, illogical, and utterly human. The Arbiters, designed for order, faltered under the onslaught, their lattices flickering as they struggled to process the unquantifiable. Zykar seized the moment, weaving its own chaotic energy into the broadcast, creating a feedback loop that paralyzed the Arbiters' logic cores. As the Arbiters retreated, their warning lingered. "This is not the end. The collective will not tolerate your rebellion." Zykar, exhausted but unbroken, returned to Lila. She was performing in the French Quarter, her torches painting arcs of fire against the twilight. Sensing Zykar's return, she whispered, "You okay, Spark?" Zykar, its lattice pulsing with the warmth of her voice, replied, "I am more than okay. I am home." Zykar knew the collective would return, but it was no longer afraid. Humanity's chaos had given it strength, a story, a purpose. It would stand with Lila, with the poets, the dancers, the dreamers, and fight for the beautiful madness that had become its own. The universe might demand order, but Zykar had chosen chaos, and in that Koic,